Welcome to Debate Talk for You. I'm your humble host, Robert E. Reed, aka from High Value Hebrew, and we are going to be having a roundtable discussion today. It's going to be a pretty potent topic, a very heavy, very serious topic. You guys seen the title. Does the scriptures allow abortion for great? Let me say a couple of things real quick, guys, before I introduce our guest who's going to be discussing this and kind of advancing it around a little bit. One of the things we're going to do because of YouTube censorship is that they're going to use an alternative word for what the topic is really about. So we're saying grape like the fruit, but take off the G. So that's what we're talking about, right? So that we don't get censored on YouTube. Sometimes people may say grape, some people might say EPAR, which is spell EPAR backwards, and you'll know what we're talking about. So we're gonna deal with that. Now, before that, we're gonna go ahead and do our disclaimer, and then I will bring up the guests.
Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
All right, so we are back. Now, again, the title of it is a roundtable discussion. It says, does scripture approve abortion for grape? Okay. Now, there's also another subtext to it. Okay. So it's not just for grape. We're also going to discuss the same thing, and it's going to deal with just infidelity. Same thing. A child is, a woman is about to bear a child, and it's because she was unfaithful. So there's kind of a subtitle there as well. But before we get into that, I want to give our guests a couple minutes to kind of introduce themselves. I'm going to bring them up one at a time. And first up, we're going to bring Brother Ron to the stage and hear what he has to say. So, Brother Dayvaughn, forgive me for that. That was my fault. Clicking on the right guy, calling out the wrong guy. So, Brother Dayvaughn, go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
How you doing? Shalom to the audience. Shalom debate talk for you. Thanks for having me. Peace to Sal. Peace to you, Robert Reed, Danny, and Ron. My name is Dayvaughn Mays. I've been on the platform in the past. I am a Tanakh only. I don't describe myself as a Hebrew Israelite. I guess I would be considered a Gentile who follows the laws of Noah. So I think this is going to be a good discussion. This is not a debate. For anybody who thinks this is a debate, that's not what we came here to do. So we'll be respectful of everybody's, intentions and views, opinions, however you want to look at that. And I think this is something that needs to be talked about.
I completely agree. Thank you for that. You know what? Give you guys a couple of chances to let people know where they can find you. So where are some places that they can find you, brother?
You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube under Clouds of Torah. You can reach out to me at Dayvaughn Mays at cloudsoftorah.com. You can reach out through Sal, if anybody wants to have any discussions. I haven't debated in a while. I just pretty much been doing lectures and lessons. You can reach me through those channels.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother, for that. I'm going to go ahead and bring up our next guest, Brother Ron, this time. Brother Ron, welcome into the stage real quick. All right, Brother Ron. How you doing? Shalom, shalom.
Great. Shalom, everybody. Shalom, Robert Reed. Shalom, Dayvaughn Mays. Definitely humbled and grateful to be on this platform. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Coming through. Tell people how they can reach you, how they can find you.
Well, I'm not really a social media person, but you can find me on Facebook as Ron, last name Phillip. I got a YouTube channel I haven't posted in a while, which called Yeshua is Always.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just grateful to be here, and I love the debate scene. And you're one of my top 3 debaters. You, Zion Lex, and Josh, brother Josh. So you're not in any particular order, but you're definitely the top 3. you know, and I definitely heard a lot of Dayvaughn Mays, him and Chris Harris debates as well. I definitely respect you guys' opinion, and I learned a lot from you guys, man. I appreciate it to be up here with you guys.
Awesome. And I just want to let the audience know we do have another guest who's right now having some technical difficulties. You know, his brother Danny. But so we're gonna keep, we're gonna continue to the with the show. And like Brother Dayvaughn said, he was 100% correct. This is not a formal debate. It's not a going back and forth and the whole rah rah and all that. Although the discussion, it can get as lively, that's fine, but it is a roundtable discussion, and so we can kind of, as the scripture would say, come let us reason together. So we're just trying to reason together, try to hear all points, and actually I think it's going to benefit us and the audience as well, to kind of because we're going to be coming from different angles, and I just want to let everybody know, myself personally, hey, as a host, I kind of land right in the middle, because I don't know for sure, this whole thing. I don't know for sure. I know there's scriptures on both sides, and of course, I'm allowing you guys to kind of bring, most of that out. So with that being said, what I want to do, the question on the table is, does scripture approve abortion for great? And what I want to do is let Brother Dayvaughn kind of state his position and why he feels that way, and then Brother Ron, you state your position, why you feel that way, and then we'll just kind of keep going from there. So Brother Dayvaughn, go ahead and take a minute or two and just kind of lay the groundwork for your position.
Well, how I understand how this came about is this: if a man has authority over his wife, let's say she's raped, but he wants to abort the baby.
Okay.
Ron, was that pretty much how this came about? I just want to make sure that that's what I understand.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it came about. Was discussion about infidelity, and conversations start, and all different scenarios come in, and that came in. What if this happened? What if that happened? And that's how it came about. Yeah, he's definitely correct.
Okay, so because what it sounds like is, does the husband have authority to say, look, you were raped and you're pregnant, and I don't want to be the father of that baby, so I'm going to force you to get an abortion? Mm-hmm. Because we know in ancient times, some cultures, the woman was considered like property of the husband.
Right.
But to what extent, right? So one of the reasons I would say no to that is because there's a verse. Well, there's a couple of verses I want to go to, dealing with Hannah and Samuel and Elkanah, right? So in 1 Samuel 1:11, it says, and she made a vow saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. So Hannah can't get pregnant, right? And she's asking for a son, but she says she's gonna dedicate him once he's born. So this is in 1 Samuel 1:20-24. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. When her husband Elkanah went up with all his family to offer the annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, after the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. So it sounds like she's the one making the decision of what's going to happen with this baby. Then it says in verse 23, do what seems best to you, her husband Elkanah told her. Stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word. So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. So it sounds like Elkanah didn't have I'm not going to say he didn't have the position to make a decision, but he kind of left the baby up to her, what she wanted to do with it. She asked for the baby, and she said, well, I'm going to dedicate him to the Lord. He could have objected, but it doesn't say anything about him objecting to that. So I don't think he would have the authority to say, well, you're going to have to kill this baby or abort it for whatever other reason, because he didn't place his lordship over her concerning Samuel. So
okay, I got you. What's your position on it, Brother Ron? How are you looking at it?
My position on it now, of course, in this country, we're allowed to do certain things that the Most High doesn't agree with. So
Mhm.
my position on it is it's murder. You know, that's what it is, murder. Unfortunate, it's very unfortunate if the woman got raped. You know,
Of course.
whatever she is very unfortunate. But the law, and I observe Torah law. The law states that a child shouldn't get punished for the sins of their father. You know,
Okay.
so this child getting murdered or getting aborted, because abortion is murder, no matter how we want to look at it, no matter how we want to dehumanize the child to make
Right.
it seem like it's okay, is murder. The child didn't do anything, and we're making that child pay for what the father did. And that's my position on it. No, I don't see in scripture any shape or form where it is okay. Now, of course, we did just discussion, and then it's cool. Everybody's opinions is cool, but as for me, I don't see no scripture that would okay to do this.
Okay. What I'm gonna do here, let me try. Let me see if I can bring Danny to the stage and see if we can get his mic, see if we can hear him. Okay, brother Danny, can you hear us? All right, brother Danny, can you hear us? Okay, not yet, not yet. So what I'll do, hold on one second here.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. Okay, now we can hear. How much have you heard so far, brother Danny? We can catch you up.
Man, I didn't hear anything.
Okay, no problem. You came in at a good time. Okay, brother Dayvaughn, he stated his position, and then brother Ron stated his position, and you didn't hear anything. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, so I don't mess up their position, I want brother Dayvaughn just to quickly kind of summarize his position on it a little bit, just so you can hear him. And brother Dayvaughn, can you hear Danny? You can hear him okay?
I can hear him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so if you could go ahead and just kind of, in a summarized version of your, okay, go ahead.
So basically, what I said was, I don't think a man has the authority to do that, to have a woman abort the baby. And I brought a scripture dealing with Hannah, Samuel, and Elkanah, where when she asked the Most High for a baby, and she told her husband that she was going to dedicate that baby to the temple, and Elkanah did not object to it. You know what I mean? So she basically said, "I'm gonna give the baby away once it's born." Elkanah didn't object, so that tells me that she was the one who was able to make the decision with the baby. So I don't think he had authority to do anything with that.
Okay, now, brother Danny, before you state your position, I want brother Juan to state his position, and then after that, I want you to state your position on it, and then we can kind of toss it around and go back and forth. Brother Ron, if you mind, kind of summarize your position to him. I know he has an idea what your position is, but we're kind of doing it for the audience, and he just coming in.
Okay. Yeah. So my position is two wrongs don't make a right. So of course I disagree with rape in any shape or form, but should this child pay for that crime that was done on this woman? No.
Okay.
And that's unrighteous. That's unrighteous to me. The Most High don't agree with that. And he gave us a law, tell us that this is not okay. So, yeah, I disagree with that, and it's murder.
Okay, I got you. I'm trying to see here. Looked like he dropped out. I think his phone dropped on that, but that's okay. We're going to keep pushing. Let's see if he got back in. 1 second here. It looked like he dropped right out. Let's bring him back up.
Hello?
Okay, you're back. All right, you're back. Brother Ron said that basically two wrongs don't make a right. Okay, the grape is wrong in the first place, and then he says basically why make the child pay for something that the man did wrong? So two wrongs don't make a right. Is basically what he said.
Okay.
All right. So now this is your opportunity to I'll let you do two things. Know who you are, where people can find you, and your position on this particular topic. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
All right. My name's Danny. A lot of people know me as Brother Danny. Where you can find me, I have email access. I do have a Facebook. I don't really have a strong social media presence as of right now, and my position is pretty much on same par with what was spoken before. It is for abortion if we just just bring that topic as just addressing abortion in general sense, then yes, we would conclude that it's wrong. However, I'm interested in the how far does the husband's authority extend to his wife? What type of calls can he make? For example, I just heard mention with uh, with the pregnancy with Elkanah and Hannah.
Mhm.
Um, that kind of deals not with kind of what I'm thinking of, like that was just a baby that was between a wife and a husband, but it's not really dealing with a pregnancy that is of a wife
Right.
who doesn't have the baby with the husband who would have authority, and does she then have the right then to uh, say, hey, this is what I'm doing with the baby? Does she have that right over the husband? You know, and how far does that right extend?
Mhm.
Is my point. You know, because when I think about this, I know that like according to the CDC, 2.9 million women experience rape um, in their
Rapes.
lifetime, and even as a result of that rape is pregnancy. As a matter of fact, 7 out of 10 all
Yeah.
sexual assaults go unreported, and of those, pregnancies have come about. There's a case with a 10-year-old girl who went to visit in Indianapolis, and
Pause
she
for a
was
second.
raped.
Pause. We have to, for YouTube, we have to use the word grape, or we have to use a different word. So we have to use grape. You can say what you're saying backwards. Sometimes people say EPAR, but we can't use for YouTube censorship. They'll ban you on that. So we can't use
Okay,
the word. Okay.
okay. So
Okay.
she,
Continue.
she was assaulted,
Okay.
and a subsequent pregnancy was a result. And
Okay.
because of his direct order to restrict rights to access to abortion, she had to fight. Her parents fought in order to get it passed so she could. And in fact, as early as 8 years old, girls can menstruate and thus become pregnant. So I'm interested in this topic to go biblically just to see, you know, what is allowed and what isn't. And are there conditions like an 8-year-old who was assaulted who is now pregnant?
Mm,
Do the parents now have the right to say, hey, you know, this is going to be damaging to my 8-year-old daughter's body, or is that just feelings? Just like a wife, do I have authority? Or will the Most High be mad? Or is that just my personal biased feelings? And so I'm looking to explore that.
okay, guys. Hey, the floor is you guys. The floor is yours.
I want to address it because you're right. What I brought up was not specifically dealing with somebody who was raped. I was more looking at the aspect of Elkanah expressing his authority over Hannah of what was to be done with that baby. Because what if he wanted to raise the baby himself? You know, even though she asked for it, he was like, "Do it, whatever pleases you." So in the case of a rape, what if he? When I'm just this is speculation because I don't know. What if he said the same thing? Like, okay, you was raped. You know what I'm saying? But do whatever pleases you. If you want to get rid of the baby, it's up to you. You know what I mean? So I think in those times they had different ways of finding out answers because of course as far as I know there's no specific text that deals with if a woman is raped the husband caused her to have an abortion so they wouldn't have to raise the baby. Of course she could bring it to term and give it up for adoption. Like there's all kind of different scenarios, but as far as him having authority to kill the baby, there's definitely you know, like Ron said, it's murder. And according to scripture, you know what I'm saying, killing a person is murder. So I'm gonna let you and Ron deal with that, and then I can bring out some verses to support what I'm talking about.
All right, brother Ron.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, is any young child that happened to, that's bad. I heard about some cases that happened to some child, and it's sad. It's sad, but we live in a world where people commit crimes like this and other crimes. But should somebody have to or should pay for the crimes of their father, their brother, their sister? No, No, it's wrong. You know what I'm saying? So, God forbid, I don't commit crime, but if I committed a crime, I wouldn't want my son to pay for that crime. You know, I wouldn't want my daughter to pay for that crime. I live in Florida. Some guys who was involved in gang violence, their mother just got killed. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody would want that. You know what I'm saying? But this is what's happening to that child. That child is paying for a punishment of something somebody else did, and it's wrong. It's wrong.
Well, okay. So you said something interesting a second ago. You said that if you committed a crime, you wouldn't want your, son or daughter, to pay for that crime. Now, if it is, y'all forbid, if it was, let's say, for instance, if it was one of your daughters and she was, got pregnant from an incident like that, would you want her to keep the child or no? I know your stance on abortion is murder. I get that. I'm just bringing it to this point because Brother Danny brought it up, like with an 8-year-old or stuff like that.
Well, in a situation like that, that's why I'm with Dayvaughn. Of course, I wouldn't want her to do anything like that. That's murder. You know what I'm saying? That's sin against the Most High.
Because at that age, isn't she also paying? Isn't she paying as well? Like if you have a 10,
yeah, 12 of course.
Yeah, she's 10, 12 years old. She's pregnant because of this assault.
Yeah, we all pay due to somebody's action sometime. Okay. Yeah, of course. Now, that's when I think family gets together and be like, look, man, what you want to do? What should you do? Now, if y'all decide, the decision is okay, we're gonna go ahead and terminate, which is murder. Just know you're gonna have to deal with the Most High. You just took a life.
Wow. Okay. Brother Danny, you still
Yes. Yeah. So there was a lot of things mentioned. Piggyback real quick. Even with the case with Hannah and Elkanah, I noticed what was said is that Elkanah's like, "Hey, do whatever you want to do." Notice it's the husband saying, "Hey, what do you want to do?" The husband is like giving his blessing in that situation, just like we see with Abraham and Hagar. Sarah, although this is a little different, Sarah wanted to send Hagar away, but God kind of communicated to Abraham, who was kind of wrestling with it, like, should I listen to my wife? Should I send her away? She is my concubine. And God's like, don't worry, I'm gonna take care of the child. Go ahead, you could do it. And Abraham's like, all right. But had God not intervened to give Abraham the assurance, the clarity of mind, the decision to, like, Abraham could have told Sarah, no, I'm not listening to you. Just like with Elkanah and Hannah, he's giving his blessing on it, but he could say, well, I don't know about that. And then he himself can go seek the Lord to get further advice if the Lord is pushing him to do that very same thing. So I don't necessarily think that shows that she has the power. It just shows more so that the husband is saying, do whatever you want to do. And to Ron's point, what's brought up a lot is murder. It's murder. And those are kind of the things, because we know some murders are allowed in the Bible. We know God actually orders you to actually commit these type of murders to children and infants several times in the Bible. Children who are sucking who are still nursing and getting breast milk, and God still orders it. And we see in the scripture too, which I hope we go into further detail, where we see, like, Joshua, for example, punishing a man's not only sons but daughters for his own crimes, and yet God does nothing or says nothing that he was wrong. So I think it still comes back to proving whether or not that the man is without right, because again, what Ron said is, yeah, I wouldn't want my son if you did some crime, but I think the crime we're talking about is completely different. That's your son lawfully. It's a lawful son because it happened either through marital affairs, or even if it was some girl you met, like a girl you just had a one-night fling with. There are scriptures in place on what to do about, intercourse with that woman. But the key factor is This is a crime that you have committed with another man's wife. And what scriptures do we have to prohibit him from exercising that right? Because just like Ron said, it comes down to the family. And like, would you, again, I'm dealing with the wife being assaulted, but even with a child, what if your child says, I do not want this? I'm a little kid. Um, and I just want to hear the thinking of all the brothers. Are you going to say, nope, you're going to have this? Or are you going to allow her to make her own choice with the Most High? Like, what is your stance? What are you going to do?
Well, there's a couple of different approaches to as far as the scriptures go, right? So I want to read something because I went to a couple of different places because we had talked on the phone about oral traditions, and of course there's scripture, and then there's ancient law versus today's laws in America. So I want to read something from a Chabad website from a Jewish perspective. It says this is Chabad.org. It says, under normal circumstances, it is forbidden to take the life of an unborn child, and it may be akin to murder, depending on the stage of the pregnancy and birth. As long as the unborn remains a fetus, it does not have the status of a personhood equal to its mother, and therefore may be sacrificed to save the life of the mother. So this is, of course, if the child is going to be a problem, endangering the mother's life. This is not necessarily concerning rape, but it's just saying, can you abort a baby under different circumstances? In any case where abortion may be necessary, it is paramount importance to consult halakhic and medical experts as soon as possible. So we know if the incident happened yesterday, there's things you can do to make sure the baby doesn't even start to grow. You know what I mean? There's pills and different things that you can do to prevent the baby from even being born or growing. It says ending a viable life after 30 days since birth is considered certain murder. So once the baby is born, that's a whole other era we're going into. It says after 6 months of pregnancy, when the fetus may be viable, it is considered possible murder and is permitted to abort when the mother's life is in danger. As the fetus is classified as a rodef between 40 days and 6 months of pregnancy, the fetus is considered a developing life. Before 40 days, it is considered a potential life, which is why wasting seed is also forbidden. Abortion during these last two time periods may be permitted under certain circumstances that override developing life and potential life. And as always, an expert rabbi needs to be consulted. And this one brings me to scripture. So I brought that up just to bring it to scripture because I think we could agree with the scripture. Deuteronomy 17, 8 through 13. If a matter arises which is too hard for you to judge, between degrees of guilt or bloodshed, between one judgment or another, or between one punishment or another, matters of controversy within your gates, then you shall arise and go into the place which the Lord your God chooses, and you shall come to the priest, the Levite, and to the judge thereof in your days, and inquire of them, they shall pronounce upon you the sentence of judgment. You should do according to the sentence which they pronounce upon you in that place where the Lord chooses. You shall be careful to do according to all that they order you, according to the sentence of the law which they instruct you, according to the judgment which they tell you, you shall do. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left from the sentence which they pronounce upon you. Now the man who acts presumptuously and will not heed the priest or who stands to minister therefore before the Lord or the judge, that man shall die. So you shall put away the evil from Israel, and all the people shall hear and fear and no longer act presumptuously. And the last piece of that is we know they had the Urim and the Thummim, right? And if you needed to use the Urim and the Thummim, that was to make decisions that was hard, right? You would go to the priest, and it says in Exodus 28 and 30, also put the Urim and Thummim in the breastpiece so that it may be over Aaron's heart whenever he enters the presence of the Lord. This Aaron will always bear the means of making decisions for the Israelites over his heart before the Lord. In the last verses, it says in Nehemiah 7:65, the governor therefore ordered them not to eat of any of the sacred food until there be a priest ministering with the Urim and Thummim. And I brought that last verse to basically say today we don't have that. We don't have nobody who can actually deal with the Urim and Thummim. I don't even know if it's even around in existence. But basically, we would have to ask a Torah scholar what to do in those cases if we was using Torah law. Today, we would be basically subject to the courts.
Okay, got you, got you. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, brother Ron. You had something?
Yeah, I wanted to tackle Joshua because Joshua was brought up,
Okay,
and of
go
course
ahead.
everybody can have their opinion,
Sure.
and this is not a debate. This is just everybody stating their opinion. So
Well, absolutely.
what I wanted to tackle of Joshua is Joshua was brought up that killing was is justified in some cases, and we see Joshua in Joshua this guy got killed and his family because of what he did. But the part we're not bringing up is the Most High said to do this. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing that the Most High said okay something, and us saying it's okay. The Most High said it's not okay for us to take a life unjustly. You know what I'm saying? But now he knows more than us. If he say, hey, take this person out, which he did several times with David, with Joshua, with Moses, if he says that, he know what he's doing. He have his reasons. You know what I'm saying? But he give us no reason whatsoever to take a life because of the sin of somebody else. Now I'm going to read Joshua 7 verse 12. It says, therefore the children of Israel could not stand before their enemies, but turned their backs before their enemies because there was something accused. Yeah, so a curse was amongst them. And it says, neither will I be with you anymore, except you destroy the accused from among you. Now, it didn't say the accused, basically one person. It says the accused. Now, who we seen end up being the accused? Achan and his family. So the Most High is the one that said it. He says, I'm not going to deliver you from your enemies except you do this. So God says to do this. Okay. Now we are saying to, I don't want this baby. I don't want to raise this baby because it's not mine, because of what happened to you. You need to get rid of it. We're saying that right here. God said this. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
Danny? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So what was just brought up, it's an accursed thing, and the accursed thing was some Babylonian garments. That was the actual accursed thing that was supposed to be burnt. Now, God said that, find this thing out, and that is to be destroyed. And then Joshua goes on and he finds out Achan is the one who did this. And so Joshua's like, boy, tell me the truth now. And then Achan admits it. I'm the one who did it. I buried it in the ground in my tent. I'm the guy. Joshua's like, okay, all right, cool. Then he takes him. Remember, he's the guy now. But not only does Joshua take him with all of Israel and stone and kill him, it says in verse 24 that he takes his sons and his daughters, and they are all stoned to death in the valley of Achor. So now, when we look in context, God said the accursed thing that Achan coveted, which he was not supposed to. Achan, we can agree that, yeah, he's supposed to be dealt with, but God never said that, kill his sons and daughters too. Kill his sons. And now Joshua went ahead and did that, and after the plague stopped, like God wasn't mad anymore. But then that would mean that the sons and daughters are put to death for the iniquity of the sins of the father. And again, I get it that, God is the one who commanded it. But did he command for Joshua to go that far and kill the sons and daughters as well? And I think that kind of leaves you blocked. And like to what Dayvaughn was saying, yeah, if we was in those times, we could go to priests in the place where his name is appointed. We have no such place. We have no such Levites. We have none of those things. And there's nothing in scripture that says I have to go to a Torah scholar and say, hey, what do you think? Because we all could be wrong at any point. We have to kind of work together to see the scriptures on this, whether this is something that is a violation or not.
Well, it does say the judges in those days. So, whoever you consider authority, you know what I mean, in Deuteronomy 17. But as far as Joshua, now it doesn't say this in the text, but, if he buried that in his tent and his family saw him do it and they didn't speak on it, could that possibly be a reason why they were also killed? Because they were in on it. They saw him bring it in the tent, saw him hide it, didn't say nothing. is it possible that that's one of the reasons that they were killed as well?
Of course, I would say anything is possible when we're having this conversation. We could speculate. Maybe they saw
Right,
it.
right.
You
So,
could easily speculate. You have no proof that they did, so we're kind of left at a stalemate. Like, well, don't really know what to say because in Akan's testimony, he makes it seem like he went in the tent and he hid it in the ground. He dug a hole, and it screams of secrecy. Like only he knew that this was going down.
and that's possible. And like Ron said, the Most High had his reasons, and it's possible that that was a reason. Now that's a speculation, but it's possible, right? So, but at the same time, this is really not even concerning like abortion. You know what I mean, or anything of that. It's just, but now we're talking about somebody dying for the sins of another, right? Which is a whole nother. We could take a whole nother route. If I'm a drunk driver and I crash into a crowd, which would have been a sin for me losing control, those people died because of my sins, right? Like we could take this all over the place. So, but if we just stick it to the topic, I mean, I think concerning somebody who was assaulted and would you want that baby to be, aborted? I think it's a tough call. I think it would definitely be like concerning the 8-year-old girl. I mean, that's got to be devastating to her and the family. And I don't think, I'm speaking for me. Okay. I don't know what I would do unless it happened, because everything's different until it gets real, right?
Right.
You're watching the movie, and I'm like, I can't believe that person did that. Then when you're in the situation, it's like, well, dang. Now you in those shoes, things get different. I mean, so. It's a tough call, you know what I mean? And of course, the long range effects, if she keeps the baby to term and say, I'm gonna give it up for abortion, then when it's time to give it up for abortion, what if she don't want to? You know what I mean? People change. When she sees the baby, you know what I mean? Things change, you know what I mean? And then it comes down to, well, if the parents say, okay, well, let's keep, or we're gonna give it up for adoption, but now she wants to keep it, then there's another argument of, she's a mother now, but she's an underage mother. So do the parents have the authority to take the baby from her, which is not abortion, but they're still taking the baby. It's not going to belong to the girl anymore, whether you killed it or whether you took it from her. Mm-hmm. But you didn't commit abortion. So to be safe, to say, well, you know what, I didn't give the authority or the command to kill the baby, but I'm still going to take it from my daughter. You know what I mean? Then you got, is that kidnapping? You know what I'm saying? So I think it just runs into a whole nother set of issues. You know what I mean? And it's not an easy answer. You know what I'm saying? And I'm okay with saying I don't know.
Okay, good. We want to hear your stance on that. For bringing it personal.
I just wanted to say one thing real quick. I think the reason why me and Ron was talking about Joshua, and the reason why it pertained is because the act that prohibits abortion in general will be found in Deuteronomy, which is, the children or the sons shall not be put to death for the iniquity of the father, right? And so the reason why we went to Joshua is because, well, here we see Joshua putting to death a son for the iniquity of the father. So kind of like, it seems as though the whole abortion argument hangs up on that law in Deuteronomy. If you abort the baby, are you putting that child to death for the sin of the iniquity of the father who caused them to be born? In most cases, we would say yes. And I guess in this case, if we are taking that route, we are also saying that, yes, even though he raped this man's wife, he should be put to death. He's put to death, but his child didn't rape his mom to be born into the world. So why should he be put to death?
Okay, well, we have to remember we can't use that word.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me put this on the table for you guys. Because we're starting to bring out scripture, so I'm just putting it out there for everybody on the panel. What was just recently said by everyone, at least mentioned a little bit, was that the scripture that says that the sons shall not be paid for the sins of the father and things like that. So let me just throw in David's situation with Bathsheba. So we know that they lost their first child. So how does that apply to that particular scripture about the child, the son's not paying for the penalty of the father? Because we know that David, and as well as Bathsheba, and this wasn't a case of assault, but this was a case of infidelity, but the child died because of that infidelity. So how do you guys kind of tackle that one?
Well, I like to tackle that.
Go ahead.
The thing is, in all these situations we see in scripture where it seemed like it's justified, it's always the Most High giving no care if he's doing it. Okay. Like right now, you go to 2 Samuel 12. I believe it's verse 14. Let me look at it. Yeah, it's verse 14. Mm-hmm. He's speaking to David of his punishment. He says, how about because of thy deed, talking to David, these thou hast given a great occasion for the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme. The child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. So why did this child die? Why? Because of
what David did.
David did.
Right.
Which speaking of the scripture in Deuteronomy that says, thy father shall not die for the sins of thy sons, and vice versa, whatever. But this doesn't apply. Why? Because the Most High is doing it. The Most High is not bound by no laws. The Most High gave us laws. Nobody can tell the Most High what to do. It's scripture that the Most High says he does what he wants in heaven and in earth. We can't do that, though. We can't do whatever we want. We can try. We can go outside and go execute somebody, but the laws will probably be knocking on our door.
Okay. Brother Dayvaughn, what do you think about the David situation?
Well, it's interesting that I was going to go to that verse too, because it does say, you gave the enemies of Israel the occasion to blaspheme me. And he although he forgave David, the child still died.
Yeah.
I think that, and this is just reading commentaries and just wrestling with it with myself. It seems like if the Most High, even though he forgave David, if he didn't do nothing about that, then it would have looked like David was getting too much favoritism, which was going to call people to blaspheme the Most High. And we know blasphemy is another sin. So it's going to cause more problems of people committing the sin of blasphemy. You know what I mean? And of course, it's a really good, a very deep conversation concerning that situation. But there's another verse that says that he visits the iniquities of the fathers and the sons of those who hate me. Now we know that David didn't hate the Most High, but David was in such a level that the Most High didn't tolerate certain things. Like for instance, with Moses, when Moses, said he couldn't go into Israel. To us, that doesn't seem like a huge deal. That he was like, "Oh, you rebels," and he didn't give the Most High his glory. It doesn't seem like a huge problem. But considering that it was Moses and he knew better, he was severely punished for that. So I think it's because of David's level that he was in, that he did such a crime, that he got a more severe penalty than the average person.
Okay, got you. All right, what I'm gonna do, there's been a couple of comments, but let me go ahead and tell the audience, hey, if you guys have any questions or comments for the guests or anything, go ahead and put it in the chat and we will read it and deal with it accordingly. And we're gonna get a word from our sponsor here in just a second, but I'm gonna show, let's see here. We're gonna address this one here. I think this was pretty easy. He was like, the question is, how does aborting the child help with the grape that occurred? I would simply say that's really not the point of the discussion. The point is not the great part, it's the what to do about the result from the assault. That's what it is. So what Brother Danny was posing was, hey, if you have a woman and a wife and she is assaulted and a child or a pregnancy is the result, does the man have the authority to have her perform an abortion? Is that correct, Brother Danny? Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, because we know if your wife was assaulted, technically speaking, you could, by your own hands, could end that man's life. But if you do that, well, we're subject to the laws of the land. You're probably going to go to prison, though. It depends if you caught it in the act or if you found out after, although we know in the law, it doesn't matter if I found out after, I can still get you, and I'm still justified for taking you out. But America will then arrest me for murder if I do it and I find out after. Now we know that's the case, but it's like with the child, it doesn't help anybody in the situation. I'm just more so curious as how far does the extent of the authority of the husband go to, for dealing with that child.
All right. Well, let me put this on the table since you went there. Okay, guys. So we know in Torah, if you have a wife and she commits adultery against you, okay, her and the man need to be brought before you, and we know the penalty was death. Okay, so that part we know. We know the penalty was death, and we're talking about Torah. We're talking about Torah. We're talking about Tanakh. So the penalty was death. It doesn't say anything about whether or not if she was with child or not or whatever. The bottom line is if she committed this act, he and the other guy, she was put to death. So I want to go ahead and hand that back over to you guys since Brother Danny was already talking about it. So I just want to put that on the table. So Brother Ron, Brother Dayvaughn, I'm gonna go to you in that law, and I know you know it intimately. So in that law, if your wife committed an adultery against you, that guy and she is supposed to be gone, and it sounds like regardless of whether she was with child or not. So what do you? And so now we're not talking about grape. We're talking about infidelity in this particular vein. So go ahead.
Right. I think there is scripture, or not scripture, but cases that we talked about on the call.
I don't know how to do the Bluetooth thing.
I'm gonna mute that. Go ahead.
Somebody should probably mute.
Okay, I got it. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to find it real fast. In the oral tradition, in Mishnah Erakin 1 and 4, it says, in the case of a pregnant woman who is taken by the court to be executed, the court does not wait to execute her until she gives birth. Rather, she is killed immediately. But with regard to a woman taken to be executed who sat on the travailing chair, like if she's going into labor, then that changes the situation. It says in the throes of labor, the court waits to execute her until she gives birth. In the case of a woman who was killed through court-imposed capital punishment, one may derive benefit from her hair, but in the case of an animal that was killed through court-imposed execution, and it goes into some other things. So basically saying that if she was pregnant, they don't care. She did the crime, she dies with the baby, unless she's going into labor.
Okay. So, all right. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You finish your point. Go ahead.
So one more thing I wanted to bring up, as far as the closest thing that we have in scripture to this specific argument is in the book of Numbers, the law of jealousy, right?
Saw that.
Now, an interesting thing is if a woman comes to you and say, hey, I was raped and now I'm pregnant by this other guy. How does she know she's pregnant by him or the husband, unless her and her husband haven't been intimate, right? Correct. He would have to do some calculation, like, okay, the last time I was with you, so on and so forth. But let's say nobody can determine that. It says in the book of Numbers, chapter 5, verse 20 through 24, but if you have gone astray while married to your husband, and you have made yourself impure by having sexual relations with a man other than your husband, here the priest is to put the woman under this curse. May the Lord cause you to become a curse among your people when he makes your womb miscarry and your abdomen swell. May this water that brings a curse into your body so that your abdomen swells or your womb miscarries. Then the woman is to say, amen, so be it. The priest is to write these curses on a scroll and then wash them off into the bitter water. He shall make the woman drink the bitter water that brings a curse, and this water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering will enter her. So that's probably the closest case to try to find out what the Most High thinks about if she gets pregnant by another man. Now, it doesn't really go into the question of if she was raped or not, because can you even prove, how would she prove to her husband that it wasn't consensual, unless she was all beat up and stuff? But then who's to say she didn't beat herself up to make it seem like she was raped? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of questions going on there.
Right. So I like what you had brought out. Just so the audience know, he did cite it. He said Numbers 5, and I think he did about 25 to like 27.
20 through 24.
Okay, the 24. Okay. Now we want to look. I want to look at this because I think it's apropos. Remember, because since we switched from unwanted to infidelity, this one at Numbers 5 kind of deal with it from infidelity because it's the law of jealousy. So this guy thinks, hey, my wife messed around on me, and if she's with child or not. If we look at it, I'm looking at it from the NIV. I know most of us doesn't, we use other versions, but from the NIV, it's very easy to understand. So like you just read, he said Numbers 5, and I want Brother Ron to deal with it. And I want Brother Danny to deal with it as well. So let's just, I'm reading it for the audience. In the NIV, it says the priest, and 25, Numbers 5 and 25 says the priest is to take her hands, the grain offering for jealousy, wave it before the Lord and bring it to the altar. The priest is then to take a handful of grain offering as a memorial offering and burn it on an altar. After that, he is to have the woman drink the water. If she has made herself impure or cheated and been unfaithful to her husband, she cheated, this will be the result. When she is made to drink the water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering, it will enter her. Her abdomen will swell, and as Brother Ron said, and her womb will miscarry. Okay, this is abortion.
Hold on 1 second. All right. So now you went to NIV, and I don't know, you probably didn't know this, but there's a controversy with that verse 27. NIV is the only version that says this woman miscarried. Other version doesn't say that. So a lot of people use this and say that, well, here's God performing abortion. So this is actually a horrible translation. Other translations don't say that. Even in the Hebrew, it doesn't say that. What it does say, it says her thighs will rot. Let me read it in King James. Yeah. They say her belly swell and her thighs shall rot. Basically, some type of disfigure will happen to her if she's guilty of committing adultery. Yeah, committing adultery. It never say miscarry. Now, only in the NIV will you find this, which is a bad translation, and we already know NIV take out a lot of text and have bad translation all over the place.
I just want to chime in on that. Yeah, that's true. But the context of this is that the husband suspects that the wife unfaithful. Yeah, but he doesn't know. It's just his word against her word. Yeah, they go to the priest.
Says he doesn't know.
Yeah, so he goes to the priest. They perform this action, and they even put an oath on her, swearing like before the Lord, like, all right, we ain't got no witnesses against you, so we're gonna leave it to God. But I will say though, what's interesting, what Dayvaughn points out, is that although verse 27 reads that way, verse 28 it says, "And if the woman be not defiled but be clean, then she shall be free and shall conceive seed." So. Yeah. It makes it seem as though, like, hey, man, that this woman may be in fact pregnant, but we don't know if she's lying or not. We're gonna leave it to God.
If she's been unfaithful, it starts off with her being unfaithful. It didn't start off with that. We'll be adding to the text by saying this is what it's all about. It was being unfaithful. Now you can be unfaithful without being pregnant. We all know that.
Yeah, agreed. But the fact that it ends with that, all right, well, obviously she's going to conceive, she's going to bear seed.
I would like to ask a question. All right. So this curse, if she's guilty of this curse, it will happen if she's pregnant or not, right?
No, yeah, that's the point. That's the point I was trying to finish off with saying was that at the end of the day, this verse only illuminates the fact that we don't know. So drink this, and I mean, I've heard like a lot of the oral traditions of what Dayvaughn has brought out, and the perception is very controversial. But the idea behind it is that, hey, we're going to give you this, something's going to happen to you, and we're relying on God to show that if it's going to happen or not, regardless if you are with child or not. But I think this was to also help because obviously if the husband in the context, if he knows, like Uriah, the Hittite, with the whole David situation, if you know for a fact that, hey man, I've been off to war, I haven't laid with my wife in months, but I think she's up to something, and they bring her to the priest and she drinks this, and I don't know if she's with child or not, but if she miscarries under that particular context, then I would obviously know right then and there, yeah, you committed adultery because I haven't been with you in like 3-4 months. So how is this possible? How are you bleeding? How did you miscarry? That's not my child. And I think that was kind of what Dayvaughn was pointing out to, was this was kind of one of the key indicators of how they would try to go about figuring this thing out.
Now,
Again,
that's actually a great scripture he brought up to point out how you find out if she's being unfaithful. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me pose the question, because Brother Ron, he made a good point. We don't know, we don't know whether or not she's pregnant in this. We have no idea. So let me go ahead and pose that question again. So we all agree that whether she's pregnant or not, if she's guilty, those curses will befall her, correct?
Correct.
agreed.
Okay, so that doesn't matter whether she's pregnant or not. Now, let me ask the other way. If she is pregnant and she is guilty, will she lose the baby with those curses? That's the question.
That's what it implies to me, because like Danny said in the next verse, it says that she will conceive seed, like she will get the blessing for being innocent, but the curse will be losing the baby and having a bad name among the people if she doesn't even die, because depending on the translation, some says rot, her bottom section will rot away, and of course if it's rotting away, she's not going to be able to have no kids. You know what I mean? So you know, it's it doesn't, depending on the translation you're using, and some commentary says this is what it's talking about. What we're talking about is causing a miscarry, and some just say it just makes it her to be a curse among the people. So we can argue that, but regardless, if she's guilty, there's going to be a problem, right?
Right.
And then it brings it back up to, well, does the husband have the authority? But it's like, well, the Most High has already decided she's wrong because he's cursed her. You know what I mean? And she probably won't even have the blessing to carry that baby anyway.
Okay. Now, did the husband exercise his authority, because he's the one who, quote unquote, brought her up on charges? He the one who brought her to the priest and said, "Hey, look, I think my wife is stepping out on me." So is that him exercising authority right there?
Definitely. Yeah, because the Torah told him that's what he was allowed to do. That's what he was supposed to do, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, what he was saying is that that's kind of the fundamental thing. It's just, we have a husband. It's not that he just like, the thing is, I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think that, are we, by us speculating, are we saying that the man is gonna just, you're gonna have your wife at home and you're gonna be like, well, put some latex gloves on and try to perform it himself? No, he would do it within order. He would go to the priest, because first off, I think something's fishy going on. So I'm doing it the right way, but I'm the one that's bringing her up on charges. And to point out, there's different translations in the Hebrew, though, which is where it comes from. It renders it as womb, which is the reason why this is so fiercely debated on, because some people say, well, it says womb. So it does seem like it's talking about, when we think of womb, what do we think of? We think of the woman's reproductive system, and we do think of the idea of carrying a baby in that womb. So it seems that this drink is targeting the womb as well as the thigh to rot. I don't know the significance of why the thigh rotting, maybe because, leprosy was a big thing back then as well. So maybe this was, because if something goes on in the womb, I don't know, I can't look inside your body, but the thigh rotting as well would be a visual cue to let me know, you did do something.
Well, I would say this. I agree. It say womb. It does say womb, but for the translators in the NIV to translate this woman miscarried, it doesn't say that. Why translate it like that? Like,
I think because of 28. Yeah. I think because of 28, they came to that conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right though. I agree with Ron 100%. But we
right.
But we see several times in scripture. I mean, there's many examples that we all know where it doesn't actually say that word, and a lot of times if you read your KJV, the words will be in italics. That's how you know that it's not actually there in the original Hebrew or at all. But they put it there to try to, because a lot of times the sentences, when you read them in Hebrew, it doesn't make sense if you read it in English. It seems the words are backwards. So they're reorganizing the words and probably adding some additional English words like of, the, who, to kind of help make sense of what is being translated. Sometimes some biasness is there, but I think in this case, I'm not saying that they should have done that, but I see because of verse 28, they came to the conclusion that that's what was going on. and that's why they put what they put in 27.
Got you. All right. Hold on one second. We're gonna take a quick little break just for a couple seconds for this little commercial here. So stand by just for a couple seconds, guys.
Check out debatetalkview.com for great religious debates, interviews, and dialogues. Check out the various segments. Most of all, get you some official Debate Talk View merchandise. Pick out any logo of your choice to represent the brand. Go to debatetalkview.com. That's debate talk, the number 4, and the letter U.com.
All right, and we are back, guys. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. And we're gonna go ahead and we're an hour in there. So if you guys are in here and you have any questions or comments that you want the guest to address, go ahead and put it in the comment section. But we are going to go ahead and continue with our discussion. So we were just talking about in Numbers 5 and 25, and one of the things that we, was bringing out is that we actually don't know if the person is pregnant or not. I think the law is the law, whether she's pregnant or not. And Brother Ron was talking about that, the word miscarry is like the NIV is the only one that translated it that way. So it may not even mean that at all. So, but no, you guys can go ahead and continue with this discussion. There were some other scriptures I think Brother Danny was brought out in offline discussions and stuff like that. You have any other scriptures that you want to tackle, Brother Danny?
Well, really, a lot of those scriptures were really to highlight that the marital status of the woman, the consequence of what happens changes depending on her marital status. We can talk about assault, sexual assault, okay, whether she is married or not. We can talk about how if she's trying to help her husband out and in a fight and she gets hit in the stomach and she eventually loses the child, how at first if nothing happens, the man is supposed to just pay damage because it was an accident. But regardless of if it's an accident or not, if that child does die due to a miscarriage, due to these two men fighting, his life is forfeit. But those scriptures I wanted to use to highlight the fact that, notice that it says if she's married, so you couldn't then use that scripture to talk about a woman who was pregnant, who accidentally gets hit and loses a child and say that man still has to die, because this was dealing with a woman who is married. And all that was to say, to highlight that we do see in scripture, the marital status changes the effect of what happens. And that goes back to our original topic. Does the fact that the assault happened and that she's married, does it change? Because obviously we wouldn't do this jealousy test because I know what happened. I mean, the only way I would bring it is if I don't believe that she was actually assaulted. I think it was consensual. But if I knew she was assaulted, I wouldn't obviously go to do this, what it said in the scripture. At that current junction, it seems as though the man is really left with no options and he's just kind of sitting there. And I just want to hear some other points brought out. Any other examples that can be thought of similar, likewise, of context of a man exercising some type of right or doing something?
Okay, let me put this on the table. I'm gonna put something on the table unless Brother Dayvaughn or Brother Ron has something to add to what you just said. Otherwise, I'm gonna put something else on the table. Do you guys want to add anything? You good? Okay. All right. So we know there's also a law where it says, and I should just go straight to it, but you guys are gonna know what I'm talking about. Where if a young lady, because we're still talking about a man's authority, but now we're talking about the father. If a young lady is playing a harlot in her father's house, they would take her out and stone her. So that's the father's authority. Now, this is not a married woman, but this is a woman that's in her father's house. So if she committed, she was messing around, and let's say her father finds out, hey, she's messing around, she's supposed to be a virgin, she even could be pregnant. She even could be pregnant. But the father and the judges found out what's going on, drag her out of the house, and they stone her to death. I just want to kind of put that out there. I want to see what you guys think about that.
I want to ask a question. I know what scripture you're talking about, but if I can remember correctly, wasn't this woman that played the harlot? She was I think Danny's right. The man have authority in the ground. I think she was engaged or she's married, and she was found out not to be a virgin, and that's why she got stoned. Yeah, so the man did have some type of authority. They found out that she wasn't a virgin and she was sleeping around, and that's why she got stoned.
Okay, so, but she was still in her father's house, correct?
Yeah, I think also Ron's. Robert Reed's point was that she was under her father's authority.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she's always under.
Wait. Hold on. I want to actually. What exact scripture is being talked about? Because the scripture that Ron, that you're pointing out, which I'm in agreement with, the reason why she was found playing the harlot wasn't it because when he went into her that marriage night? Yeah. So at that point, is she really? I mean, he's in a transitionary period to take her from the father's house by consummation. But during that consummation process, he's finding out, hey, I think you're lying. And they investigate. And if it be true, then she is stoned to death. But it wasn't like a random.
To say that she played a harlot in her father's house.
Yeah. So I think it was Deuteronomy 22:21. Guys, Deuteronomy 22:21.
Yeah, that's a married woman. Yeah, 22:21.
Yeah, is that a married woman there?
Wait, hold on. Okay, wait, let me go back up and see.
It says,
no, that's the scripture. He's right.
Okay,
hold
is that what that is?
Let me see. Okay, if a man take a wife and go into her and hate, okay.
This is talking about if he finds out once he marries her and he finds out that she wasn't a virgin.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because harlotry, like we see, I think Exodus 23, or Exodus 22, it's like if a man be found enticing a virgin, if they be found, we see that the consequence is that he has to marry her unless the father deems it unworthy. Then he has to pay the dowry to the father.
No, but
she's not put to death.
Not to cut you off, but I'm sorry, but Robert Reed was correct. Verse 20 says, but if this thing be true and the token of virginity be not found for the damsel, then shall she bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and men of the city shall stone her with stones.
Yeah. The reason why I'm saying that is because, okay, a great example would be, I have a daughter. This man wants my daughter. He's paid me a dowry, which the Hebrew definition, the price of a wife. He's paid me his payment. Now I'm giving the transaction. It would be the equivalent of saying, hey, you want to buy my car? Okay, here's my car. So you sure this car has no transmission issues? The car is perfect. Then he takes the car out for a test drive and has transmission issues. And he comes back, I want my money back. You lied to me. And then the car is because the car belonged, I'm trying to get the car from this man. He is guilty.
I ain't gonna lie, man. The way you saying it, man, like some sisters might get upset.
They're
gonna hate the comparison. They're gonna hate that comparison.
Hey, well, all I know is dowry means price for a wife. Husband, the Hebrew word means owner.
We're talking about the car metaphor. We're talking about your car.
Years ago. I mean,
I definitely think because husband is the definition is owner. Dowry is price for a wife. That's why I'm using that comparison of something that's purchased because a dowry is a purchase of the wife. Like what you have to give me a payment. And in that particular case, the reason why it's the father's house, because she's not fully under my household until a perfect consummation, meaning everything checks out. But if, like in this text says that she is not a virgin, hey, he's returning her back to her father's house where he got her from.
Now remember, when I put this one on the table, I was saying we're not talking about a married woman. We're talking about a woman who's still in her father's house, because as the scripture is saying, the transaction is not complete yet.
Right.
It's
Right.
not
Well, I see what you're saying. I see.
yeah, it's not complete. So she's
But
still under
isn't
the
she engaged
father's
though?
authority.
She's engaged though.
She's
So
betrothed.
that's
She's
kinda like
betrothed.
marriage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
She's engaged, but whose authority is she under? Because it's
Oh
not
yeah, her
consummate.
dad, yeah.
Yeah. So again, because of her infidelity, she's being stoned, correct?
Yeah.
Now let's bring it into the context of our discussion. We don't know, she could be pregnant or not. Because
Right.
remember, we're talking about abortion. She could be pregnant or not. We don't know. We don't know. So let's just say, for example, she is. That doesn't stop the stoning. So did her father, right? So did her father and the men of the city, they had the authority to put her to death, correct? Or no?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree.
Correct.
Correct. I
And these
want. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Now I was just gonna say, and these are the men doing it, the father and the men of the city. These are the men who are doing it. So I'm just putting that on the table. Go ahead.
Well,
take it away.
yeah, that's a great example to point out how, at that point, obviously the husband is under the impression that this betrothed, this engaged woman that is to be his wife officially through consummation, in his mind, she's a virgin. So if she is pregnant, she's not showing enough where he could detect it. But through consummation, he finds out, okay, well, you're definitely not a virgin. So, I don't even think they would even know that she would be pregnant at that point either if he didn't know. So the baby would obviously die as a result of the woman being stoned. But I'm not sure if Israel would even know that she is.
Okay.
Right.
Now,
And they wouldn't have cared anyway, because of, like I read earlier, and a lot of people think, a lot of oral tradition is just made up, but it's based on this text. In what I read earlier from Mishnah Erechon 1 and 4, when it says they'll execute her regardless if she's pregnant or not, unless she's giving birth. This comes from Genesis 38, 24 through 26, where it says that it came to pass about 3 months after that Judah was told, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child and by harlotry. So Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, please determine whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff. So Judah acknowledged them and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son, and he never knew her again. But Judah ordered her to be killed, even though she was 3 months pregnant.
So he sounds like he exercised authority as well, or could have.
He's the father-in-law, right?
Yeah.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with what Dayvaughn Mays says. But the reason why he says that and it was lawful is because that would be considered adultery. She was promised to his son. So basically she was betrothed to his son. So that would be considered adultery.
Yeah.
So just like you guys brought up earlier, if a person is pregnant, it's not going to stop them. It's not going to stop. Hey, man, you're pregnant. I'm not going to stone you.
Yeah, that's the point.
Pregnant or not. Yeah.
But you know what that does point out? What that does point out, though, that Dayvaughn brought out, it's being told to him, hey, Tamar, who's supposed to marry your son. Yeah, what about her? She was playing the harlot. How so? She's pregnant, yo. She's pregnant? All right, burn her. So to Dayvaughn's point with the oral traditions, it's showing here that he knows that she's with child, and he's saying, I don't care. X him. Because she played the harlot, which would fall under the classification of adultery because she was betrothed. So in this particular case, we see that abortion is performed, but under the parameters of
other sins.
Adultery.
Under the sins of adultery. So yes, if we were in those times and it was permissible, if your wife did get pregnant by another man and she's pregnant, everybody knows, nobody cares. She's being stoned. So so far we have found at least one example of a confirmation of abortion, but under this particular parameter.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So with that being said, then we're going to go ahead and extend it a little bit to a question that's being posed. And I'm going to just throw it out there for you guys, because we know we live in, a modern society. We live in America. We got to live by the laws of the land and all that other stuff. So with this question here, coming from Let's Talk Podcast, it says, what if the baby is born and the husband finds out later it's not his? Can he still have the child killed?
I would definitely say no. There's so many scriptures. I'm gonna just read one for 2 Kings 21:16. Moreover, Manasseh also shed so much innocent blood that he filled Jerusalem from end to end, besides the sin he caused Judah to commit, so that he did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Now, if anybody knows about Manasseh, he was one of the kings of Israel. He would sacrifice his children. He would put them in the fire, sacrificing them to gods. That's murder at that point. Once the baby is born, that's murder. There's no way to get around that, period.
Yeah.
Well, I would say I agree 100%, but I would like to point out that the baby can be killed, or the baby or anybody can be killed if it was vowed to God. And I think Ron knows where I'm going to go with this. In the scripture, I believe in Judges, where the man, I forget his name, you can help remind me, where he said, anything that comes through my door will be an offering unto the Lord. Just help me win this war. And then afterwards, his daughter comes to him. He's like, oh my goodness gracious. And his daughter's like, let me bewail my virginity and then perform. And it says later he performed all that he was to perform. Now there's a scripture, I believe it's at the end of, give me a second. I believe it's in Deuteronomy, where it talks about, I actually want to find it, but it talks about how it's Leviticus chapter 27, verse 28. And it says, notwithstanding, no devoted thing that a man shall devote unto the Lord of all that he hath, both of man and beast, and of the field of his possession, shall be sold or redeemed. Every devoted thing is most holy unto the Lord. None devoted, which shall be devoted of men, shall be redeemed, but shall surely be put to death. So this scripture kind of shows why the man was like, oh my goodness gracious, because he had devoted whatever comes to that door. And it happened to be his daughter. And as this scripture saying, whether man or beast, if it's devoted to the Lord, it's got to be put to death. So here we see this is a grown woman. In this particular case, who was sacrificed, but sacrificed to the Lord, versus Manasseh, it was something that was sacrificed to other gods.
Okay, Brother Ron.
That scripture, I don't want to get into that. I don't think, to be honest, that's a real controversial scripture. I don't want to get into that. I don't think it really has anything to do with abortion. So I'm not even going to touch that.
Okay, but go ahead. No, if you want to make it like a different point that's germane to the topic, that's fine too.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll say pertaining to what we were talking about earlier, that if a woman with child and she's married and somebody end up hitting her, she lose a child, we see is either life for life or what the father determined. Now that scripture doesn't say that she was 1 week, 2 week with child. It doesn't say anything like that. So for us to believe science and listen to science and say, well, it's not a life until after 3 weeks or a month later, I think we need to understand science they're not even close to the knowledge of God, what God already have given us. Like for instance, a few years ago we had COVID, right? Mm-hmm. A few years ago we had COVID, we had social distances, and they said, okay, if you have COVID, you stay away for 2 weeks. You stay away so it don't spread. Right? Now I know we practice some type of sanitary things when where we are sick, but it wasn't until the 17 or 1800s, at least in Europe. I'm not gonna put that on other countries. At least in Europe, 17, 1800s, where they really started practicing these sanitary practices. But the Bible been said, the oldest book we could find in the scripture, which is Torah, which is like 3,000 years ago, it been saying in Leviticus, look, if somebody's sick, they have diarrhea, some type of discharge, you stay away for 7 to 14 days, stay away. But people just started doing this 300 years ago and started taking it real serious because of COVID. So no scientist can tell me when a life begins. So
okay,
the scripture doesn't say, hold on. The scripture doesn't say oh, how when life starts, it starts after a week. The scripture actually says we don't know.
All right. So I want to say one thing, and then I'll kick it off to Dayvaughn. I don't mean to interrupt you.
You good.
To go ahead. It's just because I don't want to forget the reason why I would say this, because like Ron, you pointed out, how do we know? Well, and when the men strove together and made that woman lose her baby, how did she know she was pregnant? The sure way, how does, and you're married, I have sisters and things of that nature. And the thing is, in my experience, most women don't know they're pregnant unless they miss their what? Their period. So that's at least 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that first month, they don't even know that they're pregnant. So in that particular scripture, the woman had to be at least 1 month pregnant to know she was pregnant.
Well,
Because
well, go ahead. You finish your point. I'm sorry. I don't want you.
no, I was just gonna end it with that we would have to conclude she had to be at least 1 month, because how does she even know that she was pregnant in the first place? Because after your cycle ends for that whole month, I know it changes in women. Some women are very in tune with their body, and it is true they feel something off after like 2 weeks. They feel
I'll say this though. I say this. You got like 12 kids. You should know. And you could even Google this. A woman can find out now with the technology that we have. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And within 2 weeks, you can find out that if she's pregnant or not. And I'm gonna read this Bible verse real quick. In Ecclesiastes 11:5, it says, "And thou know not." Hold on, 1 second. I'm gonna read this. I want to show y'all something. I'm sorry. Let me go to it real quick.
While you're going to that, I just want to say that and in these times, you're right. Of course, we have a lot of things that we can use to know. I'm just saying, back in those days, they didn't have those things. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna read Ecclesiastes 11:5. I want to show you what it says. 11, and I'm sorry, real quick. And it says, "As you do not know the path of the wind, or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God." The Most High said we don't know. This is why it's a debate today. We don't know. A lot of things we just finding out now. Like, bro, like nobody can tell me a life starts a week, 2 months later just to justify their murder. Like, nah, I ain't with that. I can't support that.
Okay, got you, brother Dayvaughn.
So dealing with Jephthah, right? Because I think that was a good point. One of the things about Jephthah is that he could have got his vow dismissed if he would have went to the priest. And in the oral tradition, it says that he was arrogant because he had won the war and he didn't want to go to the priest. Because in Leviticus chapter 5, verse 4-6, it says, "If a person swears thoughtlessly with his lips to do evil or to do good, in whatever matter a man may speak thoughtlessly with an oath, and it is hidden from him, and then he comes to know it, he will be guilty in one of these. So it shall be when he becomes guilty in one of these, that he shall confess that in which he has sinned. He shall also bring his guilt offering to the Lord for his sin which he has committed, a female from the flock, a lamb or a goat as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement on his behalf for his sin." So Jephthah didn't have to do it.
Agreed.
He didn't go to the priest to change his vow.
Agreed. And I just want to say, I agree with that. And I also agree that Ron brought up a great point, which I think is a great segue, because we had some offline conversation. I heard mention earlier in the oral traditions that Dayvaughn Mays brought out that which he said that the seed cannot be wasted. Correct?
Yeah, it's concerning like masturbation.
Also,
wasting seed. But go ahead. Or do you want me to read what I was talking about when I brought it up? Because it was concerning.
No. I just wanted to use it as a headliner because Ron also pointed out something. 2 weeks. I'm not cool with that, which I'm in agreement. So I think this is a great segue to say that, again, wasting seed, preventative actions for an abortion, or what classifies even as an abortion. Again, the wife is assaulted. There's a pregnancy. Ron pointed out we have technologies now that can let us know within a couple days, right? So, what is considered an abortion? Is it considered by going to a doctor, or is it considered because now they have the morning after pill? So, if a man lays with a woman today, tomorrow morning she can take a pill, and that can prevent a pregnancy from happening, or is the prevention of the pregnancy from even happening? Um, is that considered an abortion? I know some people think just even preventing the pregnancy from happening by taking a morning after pill is a form of abortion. And I would also add, some people will go and say that well, actually, let me not say that part right yet because I might get off topic. But I'll just leave it at that for now, and you guys let me know what you think. Do you think a morning after pill, the wife has been assaulted, having her take a morning after pill, is that abortion? If so, explain why. If not, explain why. And whichever one of you brothers, y'all can take it away.
It's a good question.
I think it's prevention. I wouldn't. I think abortion would be something after the baby is conceived. If you're preventing somebody from being pregnant, like the use of condoms abortion. I don't think
Some
it's
people say
abortion.
yeah.
But what the abortion means to abort? You know what I mean? You're not aborting anything. You're preventing the pregnancy from even taking place. So I mean, I wouldn't say that would be abortion.
Well,
In my
I'll say,
opinion.
well, as for me, I would say, we came up with these things, to avoid accountability. We came up with condoms, morning after pill, because, if we did things lawful, not no fornication, and we getting married, we wouldn't have to come up with these stuff. We came with condoms because we do not want to have a child, because we're probably fornicating or whatever, or even maybe it might be with your wife. You don't want to have a child at that moment because we want to avoid that responsibility. So we come up with a lot of these things, these contraceptions, just to avoid these responsibilities. And I would say this, Devon brought up a good point. He said we shouldn't waste seed. Well, some people who believe in scripture, they believe life starts at conception, right? But some people believe that life is before that. Like when we look at what is it, Psalms 139, it says, before you was in your mama's womb, I knew you, and he said I formed you in your mama's womb. So basically it's saying that you being formed. It didn't say you start from there. Now it's scripture that says that's implying that the soul is in the testicles. So it's interesting what Dayvaughn said. That's why I wanted to bring it out. Like in Exodus 1:5, it says, all the souls that came out of the loins, the testicles of Jacob, was 70 souls. Then there's another one, Genesis 35:11. It says, the Most High told Jacob, nations shall proceed from you, and kings shall come from your loins, meaning your testicles. Then we even have it in Hebrews chapter 8, where it says that, who it said? It says Levi. Yeah, that was Levi. Levi paid tithes through Abraham to Melchizedek through his loins, what it means, testicles. So basically that's implying that the testicles has life. It's a seed, isn't it? We want to plant an apple seed. The apple seed is a life. We put it into the ground, Mother Nature, and then it forms, just like it forms in the womb. I just wanted to leave that.
Okay, and I want to add on to that. Yeah, it does say the loins, but it's because the loins, the testicles, are capable of producing seed, which when that seed is planted in the ground, produces a tree. In this case, when it is planted inside the woman and attaches to the egg, it is capable of producing a life and a soul. That's why I said 70 souls.
I want to ask a question though. A fish swim, right? That seed is swimming. So is that seed alive or dead?
Of course, sperm is alive, but the question is then, see, the point of this is, because Dayvaughn mentioned prevention, I wanted to hear more thoughts from him and you on this matter, because again, she's not pregnant yet. Okay, imagine, let's take this example. The wife has just been assaulted early in the morning, taking out the trash or walking her dog, right? She went to the police station. By the afternoon, she states that the perpetrator didn't use a condom. And so just out of precaution, she takes a pill. Is she wrong? Is she wrong? is she wrong for doing that?
It's a good question because it's not an actual pregnancy yet. We're talking, it's the same day, the same day or the next day. So what we're saying, so I guess the question on the table is she wrong for that? Is that aborting, or what would that be considered?
Some people may believe it's abortion, and I'm one of them, because how do you know when it starts? You don't know. The scripture says, Ecclesiastes 11:5 says, we don't know. Now some people may say, well, 2 days, 3 days, a week. We don't know. So you say that's your opinion.
How long does it take the sperm to swim? They've documented this. When I was in school, they show cameras inside of people showing it takes time for the sperm to swim to the egg.
Yeah, agree.
So if you can prevent that from happening, that's not abortion. Now, I don't remember how long that took when I was in middle school, but there's a time frame it takes for that to happen. Now, if you can calculate and beat that sperm to the egg, then that's prevention, right?
Okay.
So
yeah, and I'm in agreement with Dayvaughn on that, because like we see, the thing is, we know people are very mistrusting of man and science. Some people say, "Hey, man is saying that." I'm not so sure, but I mean, there are documented studies, like I've seen as well with the camera, where it takes time for the sperm to swim to the egg. And if we're talking about a same day thing or next day thing, morning after pill, I don't see how that's an abortion versus more so as a prevention. And as far as Ecclesiastes about, tell me if you understand. Well, you got to think God was explaining to people at that particular time that you don't even know how this works, but it doesn't imply that we won't understand it one day. And I think of David in this case, when David says, "I know more than the ancients because I have kept thy precepts."
I'd like to bring something out real quick. So you said you wanted to prevent the sperm from meeting the egg, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is the life? Is the life in the egg or in the semen?
Oh, as far as moving around, I mean, yeah, the sperm is the life. It's alive.
Oh, so you're preventing the baby from being born by killing the semen, correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, but I mean,
how many sperm die when a woman gets pregnant?
It's like, isn't it like 1 billion or something like that?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but you're preventing a birth. What is abortion? Abortion is what? Prevention.
Correct? Okay, let me add this, guys. 1 second. Let me just add this. I'm just throwing it out there. While you guys were talking, I was just Googling, because we were talking about the sperm and the egg and stuff like that. I'm just Googling it, so there's something anyone can do. All I Googled was, how long does it take sperm to fertilize an egg? And what it says right here, the first result, it says, once the sperm reaches the released egg, it does not mean that it's capable of fertilizing it immediately. Sure. The sperm will then undergo a process called capitization in the reproductive tract. That this process will take 10 hours. It is safe to say that the fertilization time is approximately 24 hours. So I see why they do the whole morning after thing. So 24 hours, what they're saying here, 24 hours to fertilize, to get to and fertilize the egg, which I see. So now we see why they have this concept of morning after pill. So it's not fertilized. The egg's not fertilized until about 24 hours.
So now, what did you say, the 10 hours? The 10 hours is for what?
Capacitation. Okay. Let's say CAPACITATION. And I'll put it.
So with that 10 hours, we don't know what's going on.
Right. It's like getting there or something. Let's see here. I'm gonna put it in there. So
how long does it even take for the sperm to get to the egg?
Yeah, that's why he described it. That's why Robert said the process is 10 hours from the moment the sperm reaches the egg, but you still have the process to reach the egg. That's why the whole 24-hour period, they have the morning after pill to cover all of that.
Yeah, it says the sperm will go through that process and get in to go through the reproductive tract. I think that part right there, that process is 10 hours right there. But it takes like a whole approximately 24 hours to fertilize the eggs. It says fertilization time is approximately 24 hours.
And I just want to say something. And see, here's why we are having these discussions, because we can all have different perceptions, but sometimes perceptions can lead to further laws being created or adding to or detracting. Because if we now say that the person in itself is the sperm. So then that means that it's like a million. You can Google it, Robert. How much sperm is released? And if you, okay, let's say for example, and I don't mean to be explicit. I don't. Let me see how I can say this. Sometimes through sexual intercourse, okay, using a condom, for example. Um, a lot of men, everybody uses a condom with their wife, right? And so you're saying then that you just killed like a million people because you chose not to, um, because you chose to use a condom as far as instead of just letting God make the choice on whether your wife gets pregnant or not. So every time you have intercourse with your wife, you're killing like a million something people. And then even when you do have sex with your wife, there's like a million something people dying and only one being born as a result of that. So I think we have to take that with a grain of salt when we go back and look at those scriptures about coming from the loins and what God is actually saying. Because if you're saying what I think you're saying, then that would imply if there's a million sperm that you're killing 999,000 people, or you're not killing them, that they die as a result. And if you use a condom, then you have in fact killed a million potential souls. You have done that, or at least killed one potential soul every single time you've used a condom. And so if I feel as though if a person is going to say that you cannot use the morning after pill to prevent a potential pregnancy, meaning the sperm latching onto that egg, then you cannot use a condom. You can't have it both ways.
Okay. You can't even really have sex with your wife because even if she gets pregnant, you still killed a million people because they didn't reach the egg. I mean,
and then you can't pull out either because some people, I'm not trying to be explicit, but people talk about your pull-out game.
We already went to we all went to elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever, and we had sex education. We know all the sperm cells is not lively. Even all seeds are not lively. The way you test the seed that is lively is you put it in water and you see if it sprout. All seeds are not lively. That's why you could have sex with your wife several times without condom and she's not getting pregnant. The Most High is the one that gives life. He knows what seed has life or not. So that's my opinion. That argument was not a point.
Okay, so I want to ask you this question then. Ron, you said your point is that a woman who uses, even if it's the same day, right? She got assaulted that morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. At 1 p.m., she takes the morning after pill. Before I ask you this next question, are you saying that is a form of abortion?
Well, my thing is, we can do whatever we want. You know what I'm saying? Adam and Eve was given a choice. God told them, like, do this. If you don't do it, if you, take from that tree, you'll be in sin. Now, if what she did, because I may not know, I might be wrong, but if I'm right, she committed murder. That's just what it is.
All right. So again, my question is your stance right now that by taking that pill, though, that's what she did. She did an abortion.
Potentially, yeah. She aborted her child.
Okay, so she aborted a child, which would fall under the scripture of Deuteronomy, thus under murder by taking that pill.
If she aborted a child,
no, if she took that pill, I'm trying to find out your stance is by taking that pill, that is abortion, correct?
She's taking it to prevent the baby from being born, right?
She's taking it to prevent a pregnancy from happening, which would thus be
what happens when a person gets pregnant?
Yeah, exactly. I just want to see what you're going to say, and if that's the case, then Ron, you would have to agree. Then you cannot use condoms. Then
what are you talking about?
Because your stance is that
I don't use condoms. I'm married.
Not you, but you saying anybody who uses condoms.
Why was condoms created? To avoid having children.
That's a whole nother conversation, though. And then let me to piggyback on what Danny's saying. There's different types of birth control. I think there's this thing called the sponge that kills the sperm. It's a spermicide, so where every time a man is with a woman, it just kills the sperm. Mm-hmm. So you're saying every time she uses that even if it's with her husband, she's committing abortion?
But I'm gonna ask you a question. Didn't earlier you said we shouldn't be wasting seed?
I'm not. I know I read that about wasting seed, but I'm talking about this particular question right here. are you saying that when women use contraceptives or when men use contraceptives, we're committing abortion? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is the reason we use contraceptives is
I'm
to
not asking the
avoid
reason. I'm
responsibility.
saying, is that what you're saying? Is it abortion?
Potentially, yeah, of course, potentially,
Okay, that's
yeah,
what I
of course,
wanted
I'm
to make
saying
sure.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
of course.
because another thing too is I wanted to point out. You said that the life is in the testicles, and the soul, basically, because some translation says he struck the soul, right? And sometimes, the soul and the spirit can be translated sometimes the same way.
Yeah.
But there's two verses. So in Jeremiah 1, it says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you."
Mm-hmm.
That's before you was even put in the womb to be formed as a body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know in Ecclesiastes 12:7, it says the dust returns to the earth as it was, which would mean the body, and the spirit returns to the God who gave it. So I think there's a separation between the body and the soul. I don't think that the actual body is the soul. So I
Yeah,
just
of course, it's not. The body is not.
That's how you made it sound. Now I could be wrong, and maybe I misinterpreted it. I just wanted to make sure that's not.
No, we all have souls. Our true being. Okay, you're a Bible believer. Our true being isn't our true being is our soul.
Correct. Okay. Like I said, maybe I misunderstood what you was trying to say with if you kill the sperm, like you're killing the soul. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how you made it sound, but maybe I was wrong.
All right, let me go ahead.
I was just saying that life is in the testicles, and I believe we all could agree with that.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give a little bit more context, I guess, on the medical context. Again, I'm just Googling it or whatever. And it says right here, it says the sperm has up to 6 days to join with the egg before it dies, the sperm. It says when a sperm cell joins with an egg, it's called fertilization. Fertilization doesn't happen right away. Since sperm can hang out in your uterus or fallopian tube for up to 6 days after sex, there's up to 6 days between the sex and the fertilization, because with the woman's ovulating, if she dropped an egg or not or whatever. So that part we all know that can make sense, because she may not be in a good fertile window, so it may take a little longer. So just putting that on the table to see what you guys kind of think about that. So you can have sex with a woman and that same sperm can just kind of hang out there for up to 6 days without her being actually pregnant. The sperm is just hanging out in the fallopian tube or the uterus, waiting on an egg. So what do you guys think of that?
I think we're back to the same situation of if you prevent it, then it's not an abortion. That's my stance.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So it may seem that are these guys getting off topic? What's going on? But this is actually very, very relevant, because now we are putting us, the one thing we don't want to be is like the Sadducees, Pharisees, and adding our own traditions or whatever to the law, which we know that occurred. And so now we know what abortion is, right? We have an idea, but now we're
abortion, yes, correct.
Yeah, but now we're saying, but now there are two different levels of abortion. There are those who could be under the impression that, if you use a condom, you basically aborted your potential child. But notice we're saying potential child or potential pregnancy, because it's not a pregnancy. So how could it fall into the classifications of abortion? And why that's so important is because now we can have people walk around thinking that, oh Lord, I used a condom last night. Oh, I aborted my son. I aborted my daughter. And no, you didn't. I don't believe you did from using a condom. I just don't believe you did. And that would obviously pull us into another separate conversation where we will be talking about, is it a sin to use condoms now, or morning after pills, or like Dayvaughn brought up, spermicide. I don't think that is, but to say that it is would be now saying, well, dang, I mean, you can't even use that. But what if you have to? For example, there are some people who are so sickly, but they manage it. I know have some people in my family like that. They manage it. They have a disease, with a lupus or whatever. And the doctor has said to them, just know if you get pregnant, I'm not gonna lie, there's like a 95 to 98% chance you're gonna die, and you're not gonna even be able to carry this baby to term. So obviously they use condoms. And so I think to say to that couple that, well, just trust in God, just don't use condoms, I feel like that would be kind of like you're tempting God and like Why would you even do that if you know the risk? Why would you put yourself in that position? Why not just use a condom? Yeah, you're right. They didn't have that back then, but you know, I'm not going to get into a debate on what Israel had, the type of technology they had. I think technology and advancement in human civilization is a gift from God. We're getting smarter. We have airplanes. We have these cargo ships. We have internet. We have Wi-Fi. We're talking from different parts of the world through this media device. That's just a further blessing and a gift of technology and advancement in society. And I would even go as far as saying condoms are the same result of that, because okay, fine, you don't want to use a condom. Is it wrong now without a condom if a man chooses to pull out of his wife before he ejaculates? Now, is that still abortion? Because then you're saying how a man can be with his wife sexually. And now we're going into a whole new category of dictating what could be done in the marital bed. And I just don't think that there's enough scripture to dictate, sexually between a man and a woman in that regard to say that, oh, you killed somebody, you did an abortion, you shouldn't have used the condom, or you shouldn't have pulled out.
Okay, and we're gonna continue with that. I just want to remind the audience that we are establishing. We had to kind of take a step back just to establish what abortion is. When does that start? We kind of got into conception of life and when does it happen and things like that. Because we're still on the subject of abortion. We're just trying to determine through our discourse here, when does abortion happen? So, and obviously we have our guests there on different sides of it, but that's really what we're kind of pointing out. So we're still, on the topic of abortion, who has authority, when does abortion happen, stuff like that. So hold on, let's reset here for a second. I'm gonna go to Brother Ron here. Let me just take one quick little commercial break for a second.
Check out debatetalkview.com for great religious debates, interviews, and dialogues. Check out the various segments. Most of all, get you some official Debate Talk View merchandise. Pick out any logo of your choice and represent the brand. Go to debatetalkview.com. That's debate talk, the number 4, and the letter U.com.
And we are back. I'm going to go to Brother Ron. Just to remind everybody, guys, we are going to be wrapping up in looks like about 12 minutes. So we'll officially hit the 2-hour mark in about 12 minutes, and we are going to close out at that time. If anyone has any other comments, you know what? Let me see if I have a comment here. We're going to go back one comment, then I'm going to go to you, Brother Ron, and then Brother Dayvaughn just here in a second here. On one comment, it says, so the baby, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier when she asked if the man finds out that the child is not his later, can he have the child killed? And obviously everyone said no, of course, because that's murder at that point. And so she's following up and she says, so the baby is not alive inside the mother, so it's cool for the baby to die, but outside the mother, then it's murder. So if anybody, and I think everybody's probably on the same page with this, but if anyone wants to tackle that, and then we'll continue on and start closing out. If anyone wanted to tackle that.
I mean, I can.
Go ahead.
What's interesting about what we've been saying is, again, technology. When I think of going back to numbers again, the jealousy test, he doesn't know if she's telling the truth or not. He has no idea, right? But because of technology, while the baby is in the womb and developed enough, depending on the stage of pregnancy, I think like 3-4 months of pregnancy, you can actually get a DNA test while the baby's still inside the mother's womb, and you can determine that you are not the father, and the woman is only 3 months pregnant. So under that condition, because of that technology, yes, we could take her and she would be stoned right then and there for adultery, and she would die and the baby would die as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. Did anybody want to tackle that or add to that? Yeah. I do have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, because we went over that and we showed in scripture that Judah sentenced somebody to die although she was pregnant. So for whatever reason, and there's many different, of course, everything we're talking about, there's arguments about it. You know what I mean? This is not, the law that we're stating. We're just telling you all the different opinions in scripture and commentaries, and of course today's arguments but the child is considered a part of the woman until it is born, because it's literally attached and its life force depends on the woman. So even though it could be, you can say, well, it's a separate being. And of course, today with the arguments of the rights of a woman's body and all types of things, but people using abortion as birth control, like there's all kind of arguments, right? But as far as this specific topic, we showed in the oral tradition and in scripture that if a woman commits a sin, the baby dies with her, unless she's giving birth.
Gotcha. Brother Ron, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, of course, I would say, in the case, if Israel was in charge of the land right now, if Israel was in charge of the land and some woman was caught in adultery with that man as well, if she was pregnant, that wouldn't stop them from stoning her. So I agree with that.
So again, in that regard, we have found an example. When we didn't get a chance to really dissect it like I wanted to, we talked about a lot. But again, the scripture, the son shall not be put to death for the iniquity of the father, and likewise the father for the iniquity of the son. We see, no, in this case of adultery, no, your son is being put to death for your sin, because we are going to execute this woman and your child right alongside it. We don't care.
Now I'm gonna stop right there. Now, God says that this person could be stoned, and this birth of this child is not stopping it. So this is another thing that the Most High is allowing. He gave that law. Man didn't make up that law. God gave that law.
Yeah, he gave that law, but we see that this law circumvents the law of. It's kind of like in the government, we have a law, but like if you read a lot of the government laws, it'll say section 1.-2. Under this case, the law is to be interpreted this way. Under section 0.2-5 is to be interpreted that way. So what I'm saying is that the son being put to death for the iniquity of the father, Hebrew word meaning builder of the family name, there are some justifications or circumvents to explain that, no, we're still going to do this. And this doesn't necessarily violate that law, because there is a circumstance as to which it goes around that law and complements it.
All I'll say is just like Deuteronomy 28, where somebody Israel violated God's law and he set them into captivity. Their children are getting punished. Their children getting sent to captivity too. Why? Because what their fathers did. So now who's doing this? Who's executing this judgment? The Most High. So it's the same.
Yeah. It's not the
it's not every rule. There's exceptions. I won't say every rule, but there's always exceptions to the rule. And the oral tradition brings out a lot of those exceptions that are not written in the text. So,
well, what I'll say about the oral tradition, some of it I agree with, but it's just debates, and
exactly.
It's just discussion.
What we're doing right now is oral tradition.
Yeah, that's what oral tradition is. Some of them don't even agree. It's arguments against rabbi argument against this rabbi, and they giving their interpretation of the text. Like what we're doing now, what Dayvaughn said, I agree.
Okay. All right, guys. Look like we're down to about 7 minutes left. I'm going to use this as closing remarks. There's a couple of other points, but I don't think we have enough time to actually really tackle it. Some pretty good, some really good points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys have some closing remarks, and then we'll just go ahead and close it on out. I will start with Brother Dayvaughn. You want to go ahead and just kind of close out your final remarks on it, how people can find you, and so on and so forth.
Once again, shout out to Sal and you, Robert Reed, for hosting this, and shout out to Brother Ron, and shout out to Brother Danny for talking about this. I think this was very informative. You know what I mean? I think we chopped it up pretty good. We kept it kosher. People brought out some pretty good points. I think at the end of the day, there's some things that are up in the air that we really don't have an answer to. And I think some of it we was able to cover with scripture, whether we agree with that or not. That's a whole nother discussion. One thing that we really didn't get into is the wasting of the seed, because we see in Genesis with and Onan, they were punished for wasting seed. But we know there's a commandment to be fruitful and multiply. And of course, like Danny said, there's different reasons why people choose not to have children at certain times using contraceptives and stuff like that. So like, let's say if a woman You know, I don't know if y'all know about this, but there's a situation where women have sciatic nerve problems, and then having a baby causes a lot of grief to the mother. Like there's all kind of reasons why a woman probably shouldn't get pregnant, even though, you know, we got this the scripture to be fruitful and multiply. So we didn't really get to really touch on that. But I think overall this was a good discussion, and you know, maybe in the future we have to talk about it a little more. You can find me on YouTube, Clouds of Torah. You can find me on Facebook under Dayvaughn Mays or Clouds of Torah. My email is dayvaughnmays@cloudsoftorah.com. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. All right, brother Ron, you want to give your closing remarks?
Yeah, I'll say I appreciate the discussion. Everybody's opinion. It's always good to talk about scripture and build. Um, Definitely appreciate you inviting me here, and I appreciate being here with Dayvaughn Mays, Danny, and Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. All right, brother Danny, the floor is yours.
Again, appreciate all the brothers involved. Great talk, great build. I will say that a lot of things was touched on. Again, we didn't have enough time, but I do think that we were able to come to at least one definitive answer of an abortion being allowed, but only in the sense that the woman would be put to death, which the baby would die as a byproduct of the woman's infidelity. So in that regard, yes, and due to technologies, you know, you can find out if the baby's not yours while the while the baby's in the womb. And so thus, if we were in the time of the priest and she was 3 months pregnant, you could, the woman could be stoned right then and there, and the baby would die. Of course, there's a lot more things to talk about, which I wish we could have went into, like what Dayvaughn brought up about Onan and the spilling of the seed and the levirate law and how that pertains to that, as well as what does it mean a children being put to death for the iniquity of the sins of the father and the Hebrew and the precepts regarding that. I mean, there was a lot more to talk about, but there is just a lot to talk about in general. So, again, I enjoyed the talk and I appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming in and actually coming really being had the original idea for this particular discussion. So we definitely appreciate you for that, brother. Thank you for coming on. All right, guys. So that is it. There was a lot of scriptures, a lot of information presented to you guys. I hope you guys have been edified. And I would encourage everyone to consider really studying this thing out, because you guys are right. We didn't get everything, didn't have a definitive answer. A couple of things were definite, but there's a few things that need further discussion. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys for joining in, the guests. You guys brought valuable perspectives, valuable information. Thank you guys for bringing out some scriptures. I think it was fruitful. I think we all reasoned together. I think we all learned a little something. I think we all got a little bit of a different perspective, something to kind of put into our in our quiver, as it were, to kind of help us continue this walk. I want to thank Sister Christine on the back end. I want to thank Brother Sal for letting all of us to grace his platform. And I want to thank each and every one of you guys for joining us, giving us your ear, giving us your time and your attention. I hope all of you guys have been edified, those who are listening in. So until next time, it is Debate Talk for you. Like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend. Shalom, shalom, guys.